Live like a digital nomad without constantly switching location. How to apply the concept of digital nomadism without the need for constant travel. Digital nomadism consists of mainly two things. The concept focuses, for one, on working location independently. This means getting rid of the need for organizing your life around your work's location, whether your location was or still is fixed like in a traditional office job, or it is changing constantly due to you working in construction or in any other job that actually requires you to show up at certain different locations at certain times. Doesn't really matter. What matters is this: the fact the region or place you work usually determines the place you live in. What the concept of digital nomadism now does is this: it cuts the cord, the connection between these two so important things, life and work, and makes it possible to choose them independently. Therefore, also not having your work's location dictate your life's location. This enables you to choose your place of living independently of your location of work. It doesn't really have to be digital. This is only a subclass of not being locally tied to your workplace. But since most of the jobs around the world are on their way to being digitalized anyway, and also COVID happened, the need for your physical, actual appearance in your place of work has drastically gone down, even in traditional location-tied jobs. Since the pandemic just forced employers around the world to find a way to get rid of the constraint of physical appearance. Anyway, so much about the first part of becoming a digital nomad. The second part is actually traveling like a nomad would. And this is where many don't really get the concept of digital nomadism, because being a nomad doesn't mean to simply combine your trip around the world and also working, but much more changing your location whenever you see fit. See, classic historic nomads also didn't constantly fly to Bali and back for Christmas, but they rather stayed at a location as long as the location had something to offer. And as soon as it didn't anymore, they just moved on. This means moving on is the default mode for a nomad, just like with traveling, but it's a different kind of traveling. We nowadays see traveling for the most part as something you do for vacation, but not as a default mode for life itself. Think of the classic example of a shepherd. He stays as long as his sheep get something to eat wherever he and his herd are staying, but whenever a location runs out of grass, they simply move on. Of course, a shepherd is not the best example ever, since being a shepherd is pretty much his job, and his job actually requires the change of location. This is where the concept of digital nomadism kind of fails the shepherd. Therefore, digital nomadism is something entirely new, including the actual separation of life and work. But of course, as with almost all things in life, it's actually not as black and white as you could think, but rather everything grayscale, or anything gradual, or anything is just a value on a line between the two extremes: work and life completely dependent, and work and life completely independent. See, what if the shepherd wants to be a shepherd? Therefore, being a shepherd is his life. Therefore, his private chosen location and his location tied to his work are identical. This creates a paradox, kind of, because as we just explored, of course, for most people, their work takes up a huge chunk of their lives already. Therefore, this connection, or rather the strength of the connection for jobs like being a shepherd, is not surprising at all. Is also the fact many digital nomads these days also do things like actually talking about their lives online, which is called blogging, in any form of media suitable. Therefore also strengthening the connection between their life and work. Cause if a travel blogger doesn't travel anymore, he increases the slight chance of not being able to blog about it. Therefore, the value of his work, or this part of his work, is probably diminishing. But what about not traveling 24/7? Just like the real nomads, and just using the concept of digital nomadism as a contrast to the classic born here, died here concept you theoretically could find on so many gravestones all around the world, provided someone decided to write this stuff onto all these gravestones, also provided the gravestones' existence. In the first place, you probably grew up. Then you moved to another place for education, often studying or an apprenticeship. Then maybe traveling to a few foreign places within a short period of time, a few times in your life, and then staying at a place again for a long period of time until you die. The thing is this: the cost of traveling itself is fixed. Whether you fly to Egypt for 1 day, for 1 week, for a month, or for the rest of your life doesn't really concern the price department of the airplane provider of your choice. Therefore, why not just elongate trips? And actually living in the locations you already paid to get to just makes sense. And if you then also get rid of your base at home, you are getting rid of one of the biggest monthly negative costs, your rent, and effectively freeing up your rent's budget for the location of your choosing. Therefore, the added expense of traveling over a traditional living just got eliminated, since traditional living isn't anything else but just staying for longer in one place, with longer being maybe a few years or your life. So now, finally, we got it all together. First, seek either a job that's location independent or a job that has an identical location tie like the rest of your life, effectively unifying these two constraints for your living location and therefore kind of getting rid of this constraint entirely. Choose how long you want to stay. You can only live in one location at one time. Anyway, also realizing you effectively free up your rent's budget by choosing where you want to live and using your rent's budget to cover the cost of accommodation in this place. Then, in a final step, get rid of all the junk that's in your house and therefore actually making moving across the world possible. Take a look at minimalism. Do you really need 36 pairs of shoes? Probably not. In the end, nobody cares about you anyway, and also about the things you wear. Anyway, you then reach the final level of being a digital nomad. Only one step left. Start.